Are you tired of spending your time and money chasing strategy after strategy only to discover what worked 10, 5, or even 2 years ago is not working now? Things shift fast in the online space, and if you're not keeping up, you're getting left behind. It's time for something different. Welcome to the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast, where every single episode will be jam-packed with proven, profitable strategies, behind-the-scenes secrets, and what's working now resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. And now, your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist, and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast. I am looking forward to sharing another amazing industry expert with you today. And I'm really excited about our guest today. I know I say that every time, but I really am, because Elaine is going to share some really good stuff today. Make sure you have your pen and paper. This is definitely going to be a writer-downer show. So let me tell you a little bit about her. So Elaine Lindsay is a speaker, a glamapreneur, digital diva, and a boomer business advisor. She's the secret sauce to add the wow factor and take you from invisible to invincible and 10x your online property to become Google's preferred choice for your niche. So that's pretty impressive, and we're going to back that up with some good stats. And I have to tell you, Elaine is my go-to expert for everything Google. So Elaine, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. That was quite the introduction. Thank you. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here because, as you know, I'm happiest when I get to talk about what else Google's given us.
I know, and it gives us so much. And I have to tell you, we met years ago, like many years ago. And I remember when we first met, you were telling me at that time all kinds of stuff about Google that, I thought I pretty much knew Google pretty darn well. But every single conversation I would have with you, I learned something new. And I love that. And I know one time somebody did it to me, and I thought, oh, this is an Elaine moment, where when somebody was talking to me, they took out this notepad and I hadn't even said anything yet. And I was like, they're like, oh, I know you're going to say good information, so I've already got my notepad out. And that's how I've always felt about when I have a conversation with you, because I always know that you are going to share great stuff, and not just great stuff, but stuff that's always going to make me money. And that's always the best stuff, right? So,
Isn't that the point?
Hey, I mean, that's awesome, right? So before we get started, here's what I always want to say before we really deep dive into Google. I really want to talk about your journey, because I know that, like most people, we didn't just decide to do what we do right now when we were young. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty darn sure Google was not as big a thing then for me. And so I have to say that, we have all these things that we do in our life until we get to the point where we're doing what we know we were meant to do. And I know for you, this is absolutely what you were meant to do, for sure. But can you tell everybody a little bit about your journey and your aha moment when you knew this really was it?
Well, yeah, I guess I have kind of a slightly different story. My business life has giant holes in it. And by giant holes, I mean actual years. When I was basically chronically ill, I had been damaged very badly in a car accident. And that was compounded by some surgery I went to have that went horrifically wrong. And it ended up the next 20, 25 years, there was only basically one thing I could do, and that was lie around and learn. And thank God for small mercies. In the late 80s, I got myself a computer, which meant that I didn't just have to read books anymore. I could actually reach out. I could get more. And I taught myself to code. And in the 90s, I finally started doing websites, and as a part-time thing, because remember, I was basically in a bed for much of that time. In between doing little business things, it was a constant reinvention of myself. It really comes to the fore when we get to 2010, 2011. I had been doing some websites and a lot of SEO for people because I realized in 1999, I built this wonderful website for a counselor, a politician. And all I could think was, well, yeah, it's a great looking site, but if nobody knows it's there, what good is it? And that's what led me into finding SEO in 2002, 2003. And I realized that all of the pieces, it's like breadcrumbs, Hansel and Gretel, it led them back home after they went to the Wicked Witch's place. Well, breadcrumbs online take you and your clients back to your home base. And when you lay out those breadcrumbs properly, then you're getting people to come to your real estate to see what you have. And when you really understand your niche, you get a captive audience because you're showing Google that you are the authority in your niche.
That's really good and explains it very visually too. So I think that is really good. Let's touch on the SEO thing for a second. So SEO, most people know that means search engine optimization. But one of the things that I know that I get asked a lot, so I really kind of want to get your perspective on it. Do I need to have SEO if I have a global business? And I'm not really local, because locally to be known and to have great SEO is really good. But how do you get known for SEO in a global business? What's the difference, and what are some different strategies and things I need to do differently if I'm not a local business?
Okay, that's such a great question. And it's really pertinent for entrepreneurs because, things have opened up. The world is our oyster. And, back in the days of Google Plus, we even went to the space station to talk to people. So we have this incredible reach now. Even as a solopreneur, you have the entire world to reach out to. It's not just about being local. And how do you talk about that in terms of SEO? Well, here's the thing. Local SEO, think of it as being geo-based. Okay, local SEO for a lot of people is about a service area or the bricks and mortar building where they do business. If you have a service area or a bricks and mortar, then you are going to be geo-tagging, meaning you're going to be using your location quite often as part of your optimization of all that you do. When you're a global business, and especially when you're an entrepreneur and in a service industry, then you don't really have that bricks and mortar place. You may have, a service area, but it's going to be a whole lot larger than, say, a local. And what you want to do then for your optimization, you're optimizing based on you, your branding, and your niche. And that's why it's incredibly important that you fully understand who you are and what you do. Because if you niche down in your niche, you are going to be able to optimize yourself better. You're going to be able to offer Google much more authoritative information within that niche. And you're going to be able to show Google and Bing and all the other search engines that you have the most relevant quality information. And that's a sentence you're probably going to hear me repeat over and over and over again, because that is the crux of everything you do. Whether it's local or whether it's global, you want to be the very best relevant and quality information in that niche. And there's a lot of other pieces that you can tie in there, but search engine optimization for me comes down to a couple of things. And one is common sense. Okay, if I sell plumbing widgets, then I'm not going to be talking about picnic baskets and ladies' hosiery. I'm going to stick within the niche of plumbing and make sure that if I'm explaining to people what we do or the history thereof, or I have a blog that talks about really funky stuff for plumbers, which believe me, there are some out there, then you make sure that everything you do, and the keyword there is everything, your images, your video, and yes, I said video, even if you're a solopreneur plumber, you should have video. It's crazy important. But all of those pieces go together to add to that relevance, because if you keep in that niche, you can build up your authority and relevance over and over and over again. And the fact is, Google has one mission. They want to return the most relevant quality information to the user for each and every query.
Well, how does that affect, Google My Business or, and stuff? So everybody's always like, Google My Business. Is that important for people who are not local?
Well, there's a couple of different things here. Okay, Google My Business for a brand that is strictly global and does not have a specific service area is not really relevant. It was originally put in place for local bricks and mortar, but they realized that there were an awful lot of people that had a service area. So some people work, within a triangle, which could be, 1,000 miles either way. That triangle is your service area. For a very little while in the early 90s, I did some work with Nabisco. So I did some traveling in a specific service area. That kind of an area allows itself or gives you access to Google My Business, which is a listing. Okay, it's simply a listing that comes up with Google Maps. If you do not have a bricks and mortar, you won't have a pin in the map. You'll have a service area, a circle or a triangle, depending on what you've put in there. And Google has recently allowed for much larger search areas. You can actually take a service area of a country at this point, if that's in fact who you service. What exactly is Google My Business? Well, think of it as that additional sort of one-page website that allows you to reach out to your customer, and more importantly, allows your customer to reach back. When you set up your Google My Business listing properly, your customers can message you, they can call you, they can email you right from that listing. And the best part about it, when you see a Google My Business listing, it takes up half the page, the right-hand side of the page in search. Okay, it's none of those 10 search results that you see on the left. One individual business has that entire real estate. So when you do it well, and what I mean by do it well, Google allows you to put posts on your Google My Business listing. Make a point of changing your posts every week. You can put up events, you can put up new products, you can put up service specials. You can do an awful lot with that Google My Business listing that just gives you that extra oomph and solidifies a little more just how relevant you are in that niche.
Well, what if you work from home? I mean, are you going to want to put your home address?
You don't have to put your home address. This is the beauty of Google understanding the fact that a lot of people work from home. This is the time for entrepreneurs, and an awful lot of entrepreneurs don't have a secondary office. They don't have somewhere outside of their home. But Google and Bing, they understand that you don't necessarily want your house located on Google Maps. And that's the whole point of a service area. You can be a local business that only services your city or town, but you don't necessarily have any place that the customer can come to. There is a little piece in Google My Business that you can tick off to say that you go to your customers or you meet your customers elsewhere. Therefore, you don't want your address put on the maps or on your listing. You will, however, make no mistake, you have to give Google and Bing your address so that they know who you are and what your business listing is. But it will not be made public.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Because I know that this is something that people get asked a lot. And another thing, as long as we're talking about this, is I actually recently went through this when I did my new website. So one of the things I did was I wanted to go check my citations, right?
Yes.
And so I kind of went through a business scan and, I couldn't believe how many different things I had, right? And that is really, really important to make sure that you check them. What is the disadvantages or what's going to happen if Google reads that, on this site here, like you forget these different things that you have that show up on Google, right? All these profiles and different things. And if your address is this over there and then you move, but you don't know to go back and update every single thing, and you don't update your website and all of those things, Google gets kind of confused. And if it's sending out, like you said, relevant information, it wants to know what's relevant. Where is the right address? So tell us how important that is, and what are some steps people should take, and how can they check that?
Okay, and actually that's a really great combo of questions. And let me sort of take pieces out of that so we hit on all of them. One of the main differences between local and global, when you're a service business, which could be more global than local, anything with a bricks and mortar, it's important that you have what we call your NAP. That's your name, your address, and your phone number. You want that available in search. You want it available in your Google My Business listing so that people can easily find you. As a service business, you don't want the address in there. You definitely are going to want your phone number and you're going to want an email, but you definitely won't necessarily want that address in there. When you have been online over time, and I know we're passing 9 years knowing each other, so we've been online for a long time. As you know, I'm an early adopter. I have profiles on some of the most bizarre social sites you could ever imagine. I'm still on MySpace, for that matter. Okay.
Wow.
Because it's what I do, I need to keep my finger on the pulse. I need to know what's going on so that I can help my clients. So it's really important that I can give my clients the information that they need. And therefore, it's important for me to have all those accounts. But what's really important, whether you have 1, 2, 3, or 103 social accounts, your digital footprint needs to be congruent. It needs to be cohesive, and you need to have one address, one phone number, and one name. And people will say to me, what do you mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is this. I quite often see people that on LinkedIn, for instance, will use their middle name as well as their first and last name.
Or a maiden name.
Or a maiden name, absolutely. And I can understand you wanting it somewhere. But what you have to understand, Google has moved to semantic search, which is great because now they utilize artificial intelligence. There is machine learning involved, and there's an awful lot more that they can suss out from what we're putting out there. The bots now look at entire conversations, and that's great, except for one thing. Bots are not human. So I might know that, today I was really tired. So instead of writing out the word street, as I normally do in my address, I put ST period. Well, guess what? To a bot, I have now become two people. And that, what I call optimization juice for that second location, which doesn't even exist, is now basically just being poured away on the ground, totally wasted, because it's not coming to me. It's no longer my optimization.
Wow.
It's wasted optimization. And, I don't want to belabor this, but honest to God, Patty, it is so important. Even something as minuscule as writing AVE for avenue and one time writing avenue the full word, or putting the suite number ahead of your address in something, and the next time you put the suite number at the end, that's two different people, two different businesses, two different optimization points that will never come together.
I noticed for me, one of the things I saw on my citations was that I really prefer when I give my phone number to put periods instead of dash.
Me too.
But then sometimes they won't let you. Like some places you go, they're like, oh no, that's incorrect. So I noticed that for me, some of them came up with a dash and some came up with a period. And I thought, oh, I think that might be hurting me.
And the dashes and the periods in the phone numbers, I haven't seen as much of that being a problem. It's when the words are actually different. When, for instance, people use, maybe a short form or a nickname on some of their social profiles, and they don't use it on others. It means that, again, this is a different person. And the fact is, if you check search, you're going to see LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. You're going to see findings in a lot of the different social profiles.
Even higher than your website.
Oh, absolutely. LinkedIn has its own built-in search. Okay, and we could talk for days on that as well. But the fact is, because it is so attuned and has algorithms of its own, it is going to come up. And in many cases, yes, long before you do in search or your website does. And the fact is, because artificial intelligence and machine learning is more semantic and takes into account the entire context of paragraphs, of pages, there is much more chance, in a way, for mistakes to be made if you're not careful about keeping those important details exact. And there's only one way to do it, and that's to check everywhere you've got an account. And the fact is, sometimes we forget that we have accounts. And, I don't want to bring it up too early, but my little offering today is actually going to address this in part, because a big part of what we do for people is auditing what you have online. If you haven't used an account for 3 or 4 years, you may not even realize it's there, and I can say I'm as guilty as the next person. Last year, we were finding that all of a sudden there were tweets coming through our main account that no one seemed to take onus for. I said, I didn't do that. And my staff said, we didn't do it. And my husband said, why does this keep coming up? Like, what is going on? Are you developing another personality? What is going on? It turns out that a few years before, I had signed up for a service through Twitter that actually took pieces from your blog or one of the other social channels, and at certain intervals would put them on Twitter. Honest to God, completely forgot about it. And this is just before Twitter got rid of a lot of the companies, that the follow, unfollow group of companies. A lot of them and Clout, they had social media pieces that would put posts out for you. So there were a lot of different areas that things could come from that, in fact, in this case, I didn't realize that I had actually set that up. Found it relatively quickly. Nothing was poorly damaged because, of course, our critical information, our details, that's the business name, my name, and the address, the phone number, whatever we needed to have out, is always the same, because we learned the hard way back when that was absolutely critical.
Makes sense to have that. It's kind of like other things where this is information and you have it, so you always use the same thing. Now, you mentioned something that I really want to touch on. I love it because it made me laugh. I almost had to mute myself. It was so funny. Is when you were talking about Clout. I mean, I remember the days when I was teaching Clout. I remember giving speeches on Clout and how important it was. My Clout score was so high too. And I thought that was really interesting. So, Clout's gone away. I mean, Google Plus has gone away. So let's kind of talk about some of these. I mean, like, I remember when I first met you telling me then, now this has been a while, and I really wasn't using Google Plus so much then.
Nope.
And I remember you saying to me, oh, Patty, remember Google Plus, Google, right? And I was like, oh, I better get on Google Plus, right? And then, and who was that big guru? Who was it? Chris Brogan that said that decided he was just going to do Google Plus and he left Facebook or something.
Oh no, that was Mike Elgin.
Oh yeah, that's right. And so literally that whole big change of things that happen and stuff. So What do you think about that? I mean, like, Google Plus was one of the big five, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. And Patty, I'm really thrilled to have a chance to talk about what we that were very close to Google Plus call the death of our neighborhood. Google Plus was a very, very different social platform. And I really appreciate you give me a few minutes to sort of wax poetic about what it was and wasn't and why it didn't make it. Because as much as some of those at Google thought it was going to be something to go up against Facebook, the actual original concept of Google Plus, which included Hangouts, which, by the way, is a forerunner to Zoom meetings. Okay, Zoom was built on the same platform as Hangouts. Hangouts were the first sort of video meetings where you could have up to 10 people when it first started, all in this meeting together. And Vic Gandotra, who was the VP of Google at the time and was in charge of Google Plus, he said he wanted this to be like people sitting on their porch. Your neighbors go by, they stop and chat a while, then they move on, maybe go to some other neighbors. And those first 2 years, that's exactly what it was. We would bounce from hangout to hangout, some of us.
Circles to circles.
At all our circles, yeah. And we would take our circles, and our circles would bounce in and out of hangouts. We had full-on concerts. will.i.am gave a tour of his studio. Taylor Swift dropped one of her songs in a hangout. Barack Obama did a couple of hangouts. His were a little more scripted than most people's, but it was an entire sort of culture. This hangout, we had our own protocols. We had to develop our own common courtesy. Because if you think of 10 people all in one place at once, you had to develop systems so everybody wasn't talking over each other. And especially when you're as talkative as I am, well, that in itself could be an issue. But all that to say, Chichu, who was in charge of Hangouts, and Vic Gandotra really saw it as this neighborhood of people coming together. And you and I both know, okay, social's only as good as how social you are. Okay, it's not about having gazillions of followers. It's not about who can do the most of whatever. It's about building solid relationships with the people that you interact with. And that's how you and I got to meet. And we have met IRL, as we say, in real life, because I came to Dallas. Google was a very different animal. Unfortunately, other forces, if you will, at Google saw it as a way to surpass Facebook. And so the overall rhythm of Google Plus was never really congruent in step with the people who put it together, because some wanted it to be this thing that was truly phenomenal, and others wanted it to be a big business. And the fact is that in 2012, when Google started moving towards semantic search, for me, who had been playing on the computer since the 80s and had learned to code and do other things, to me, what that signaled was the fact that social media was going to matter in search, and it was going to be tied to your property. And for me, your property is your website. I know there were people that tried to do business strictly, on Facebook or on Twitter, and good on you if you can manage that. But the fact is, you should always have your own real estate. And to that end, the whole concept of Google was putting the pieces together so that we could work on the integration. And that, for me, became sort of my niche, if you will, is the integration and the building of the foundations that allow people to have digital properties that all work together in harmony to give you the visibility that you need.
I think that's really interesting. Thank you for breaking that down for us. I think that, a lot of times people see things come and go. And it is true that in a way that's really good though, because things evolve and they get better. And I think people understand more now how important it is to be social, right? It is called social media.
Absolutely.
And I always like to tell people all the time, think of it as social networking. And that's when because that's like give and take, right? You have a conversation. A lot of times when people think about social media, they think of just broadcasting out, right? And really, it's about having a conversation. So, Elaine, what would you say to a brand new entrepreneur, right? So if you had a brand new entrepreneur or business owner, maybe they were in corporate and they transitioned into their own business, or maybe they just started their own business and they're following their dream now. What would you say? I mean, we know basics like, business accounts and the different things like that. But from a social and Google point of view, what would you say are the top 3 things that they need to make sure they do first and right?
Okay. So in my estimation, one of the best things you can do when you start off in whatever niche you're in, I want you to find 1 or 2 of the top influencers in your niche. I want you to let them know that you want to learn from them. And I want you to build a relationship, because it's the best way you can learn what to do and what not to do. Because there's a lot of us have been around long enough that we've already made all those mistakes. And we're more than happy to help other people not have to follow down that road.
Shorten your learning curve.
Absolutely. And the second thing is always remember that every single thing you do, and that's from your content to your images, to your video, to your audio, it all needs to lead back to you. So always consider, okay, where are my breadcrumbs? Where are my breadcrumbs? And how do I make all of these pieces sort of interconnected? Everything should be woven in a way that the bottom line is they each lead back to you.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so we spent some time talking about Google. Let's talk about YouTube.
Yes, that's perfect. The third thing was video, 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 and video. You have to do video.
Now,
okay?
Here's the thing I really want to say about that. So video. There's a lot of ways to do video, right?
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, if it makes you nervous to do video, talk and use slide. There's a lot of different ways that you can do video. But now I know for me, the very first thing, I was a little nervous about doing video in the beginning.
Yep.
Right? But there was this really great resource called SlideShare. And I love SlideShare. And so I thought, I could, talk. And I'm a speaker, for goodness sake, right?
Yep.
So being able to talk and have slides and then putting them on SlideShare, and LinkedIn loves SlideShare, right? And so that was really like my first step, right? And, everybody got excited about Facebook Lives, and that's, one way to do it too. But one of the things I'm really excited about YouTube and was pretty surprised about was that even YouTube, it doesn't even have to be video. Like when I found out that my podcast, which is audio only, we're putting it on YouTube and It's not even video.
Absolutely. And the fact is, okay, if you just use your head a little for your audios, even for your text, there are ways to modify things so that you are applying all the senses. See, the whole concept of YouTube and why people are gaga for YouTube, I realize lots of people do Facebook Lives, and I'm going to say YouTube is still the king, okay? I'll give you a few stats here that'll just blow your mind.
I love stats.
Okay, good. Okay, I think it's trillion, but I'm not sure. The total number of people who use YouTube, 1.300000000. Okay, 300 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube. Ready for this? Every minute, every single minute. Okay, that's enough to totally blow your mind. There are almost 5 billion videos are watched on YouTube every single day. Like that, those numbers are just insane.
That's
And
why you need to make sure those breadcrumbs lead back to us.
absolutely. And the fact is, again, okay, we have never left Google here because, okay, 3 guys started YouTube in 2005. They started it, if I remember correctly, on Valentine's Day. And it's now the 2nd most visited website in the world. But guess what? It's also now owned by Google.
Imagine that.
Google is the #1 search engine in the world. YouTube is #2. And guess what? It's owned by Google. So if you use YouTube, don't you think Google's gonna find that really relevant?
Absolutely.
Like it really, it tracks. It's absolutely quite amazing to me that there's still people that don't realize those connections are incredibly important. And the fact, as you said, it can be audio, it can be slides. You can do video and you never have to put your face on the video. You can use whiteboards, you can do caricatures. There's a million ways of doing it. And if you don't mind me, I'll digress for a second because some people are just terrified to get on video. I want you to know, okay, honest answer here, I'm 64 years old. And for people who, of course, are not going to see because it's audio, I have turquoise hair. I decided in 2011 that because Hangouts had come out, I really wanted to do a show. I thought that was so exciting. But the laugh was, I was terrified to be seen. I wouldn't even let people take pictures of me. And I talked about it so much that after about a month, my husband said, you know what? I'm really getting tired of hearing this. I want you to make up your mind. If you're going to do this, I want you to get on one of these Hangout things you keep talking about. And I thought, okay, well, you know what? It's time to put my money where my mouth is. So I got all prepped. It was a Saturday afternoon. I thought I'd wade in on the weekend. It would probably be easy peasy. I went for a dip in the pool. I came home. This is back in 2011 when it first started. And I came in, I dried my hair, I put on a lovely little sundress. Making a note here since it's not visual. That sundress had no straps. It was an elastic top sundress. That'll give you a little visual there. So when you see your webcam, I thought I could only be seen kind of from the neck up. So I thought I looked great. I'd put on a little makeup. I was good to go. Popped into the next Hangout I saw. There were already 9 people there, only one of whom I knew, and that was Mike Stenger, who promptly, within 3 seconds, said, "Oh my God, Elaine, is that you? And are you naked?" Well, that was it. I flew out of there, gotta go, and thought, oh my God, what have I done? Life is over. And I talked to a good friend. I talked to a good friend in the States. Actually, Kim Beasley said to me, you know what? Hey, it might actually stand you in good stead. We know you weren't naked, but who knows? And sure enough, for the next 5 months, I would be in a Hangout and somebody would suddenly go, oh, just a minute. Aren't you that naked lady? People by then realized it was just a joke. Anyone who knows me knows I'm such a prude. That would never happen. But it forced me to get over myself.
You would make me want to bury that one so it would go down.
Well, you know what? There's 2 ways to deal with that kind of bad press. You bury it, or you take it to the forefront, you write a big blog post, you call out Mike Stenger for making the comment, and you plaster it up with a picture of you in that sundress, tall enough that people can actually see the dress. And it turned out to be a wonderful, funny story that has helped me work with clients who were afraid to do video and realized, you know what, if I can get over being called the naked lady, then anybody can do video.
You know, I think that's really funny because I remember the first time that I spoke from the stage and I was super nervous. And they said, oh, and Patty, by the way, we're videoing it. And I almost had heart failure. And when I go back and look at it, at first I was just like, oh my goodness, like my facial expressions, it just like cracks me up and stuff though. But now I really love it though, because whenever I hear someone say, oh, Patty, you can do that, but like I could never do it. I'm like, oh, really? Well, let me tell you what it was like the first time. Let me show you that, this is what you see, but it hasn't always been this way. Let me show you what that actually really looked like. And so in the moment, it may seem scary, but the reality is it's just like anything else. Just take one step and then another step, and you'll just get better and you just learn more. Not doing it at all isn't going to actually help you at all. So I think that's really, really important. So I want to ask you another question about YouTube before we move on. So I know that you have, or you can have a YouTube channel, and now you can have a YouTube branded channel.
Yes.
Which I think is really interesting, because I know for me, I have my Patty Farmer channel, and because I have the magazine and I have the podcast, my VA's like, oh, Patty, we need to have you have a YouTube brand channel.
Absolutely.
And money, right? So I was like, oh, how interesting is that, right? And I think that that's kind of a good thing, especially if you have a brand that's not your name, right?
Yeah.
And so for those that don't know, can you just briefly say what's the difference and how would you treat them differently, or would you?
Well, it depends on a couple of things, sort of what your niche is, what you're like in general, what's your style. And if your style is the same in your business, then you're not going to treat them differently. But the point of having a brand account on YouTube is that you can have other people manage it for you. You can bring your staff in. They can help upload videos and put on your custom covers, which is a really good thing to do, by the way. Always put a custom cover on every video you upload. That's a little bonus.
Strategy alert.
Strategy alert, yes, always. When it asks you for a custom thumbnail, always put one up there, because that you're kind of telling YouTube that, hey, this video is important enough to me that I made a cover for it. Think of it that way. And don't forget those, really good keywords that fall into your niche. Also, YouTube branded accounts give you that better control, because it's an awful lot better to have people who can help you manage the account. You can't do that with a personal account. You don't have the same leeway. And quite often, I have a personal account. I have an account for my show, BBP TV, and we have an account for True Social as well. Those accounts do very, very different things, and that's exactly why we have brand accounts for two of them, because it wouldn't do to have them as personal accounts, because then nobody else could help us manage the accounts. And there's a lot of information you need to add to YouTube. There's a lot of pieces that go together when you're uploading your videos. It's important that you really think about how you're putting them up, what the description is, make sure you've got a good title. Do you mind if I give another tip here?
Oh, strategy alert.
Okay, it's called the AM Institute, and they have a headline tester that will give you the intellectual, emotional, and spiritual score for your headlines. And it's something that the media uses. It's a great little tool, and it makes a huge difference, not just for YouTube, but for your blog posts as well.
Oh, I love that. That is really great. And we will add that to the show notes as well. So I think that's really good. So I'm really excited to hear the answer to this question. I've been thinking about it for the past 5 minutes.
Ooh.
So I have asked people before, like even in my personal life, and I'm sure you've heard the question before, but I have my own little Patty twist. So here's what I want to know. If you could have lunch with any CEO, who would it be? But here's the twist. What would be the number one question you'd ask them? Like, what's the question that you'd want to know? So not just have lunch with them.
Yeah.
The question you would want to ask them. I practiced this on my husband, and he said Warren Buffett, and he had a lot of questions. but who,
alive or dead?
Dropping some names here in this show. So I'm like, oh, who would you want to have lunch with? And what would you
alive or dead?
Oh, either or.
Either or. Okay. Because there's actually two.
Okay.
One is Andrew Carnegie, and I don't think that's how you people say it. Sorry, I'm from Scotland, so I say it the real way. I would love to have lunch with him, and I would love to find out the first time he understood the difference between building relationships with people and selling stuff.
Well, who is he? Tell us who he is, too.
Oh, Andrew Carnegie is the founder of Dale Carnegie Method. You know, he was a magnate in steel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and ludicrous amounts of money. And How to Win Friends and Influence People is one of the books. There are a ton of books by the Carnegie. That's it. Okay. Yeah, the Carnegie Institute. There's a lot of fabulous books on, winning friends, influencing people, and how to speak well and how to comport oneself, all of those things.
I love it. So who's the second person?
Richard Branson.
Oh, yes. What would be the question?
The question would be, is it ever too late to start new? What was the most current thing he started?
Oh, that's a good question. I really like that. I really like that question. I'd love to know his answer too. So that's really good. So
that's in my 5-year wish list, actually, is to sit down with him because I want him to answer that question for me.
I love that. So Elaine, what do you love the most about your business today?
I love the fact that it challenges me every day, and I get to interact with all kinds of different people, and giving people value, giving something to someone and seeing the light dawn, or having them come back and say, oh my God, my traffic went up, this happened. For me, it's like the best dessert in the world.
I love that, which kind of segues right into my next question, which is, how can people connect with you?
Well, I'm pretty easy to find, Elaine Lindsay. If you just Google that, it makes sense that I come up. Or you can go to TruelSocial.com. That's TROO again, L, not troll. Social.
Love that.
Yeah.
And you have a gift for us. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, and we will have the link to it in the show notes. But tell us a little bit about it, what it was. It was like some type of audit, right?
It is. It's called a mini audit checklist. And it basically gives you the way to check off what you have online. Everything from your website, what's your branding? Are your colors making sense? Like all these little different things. It will sort of pull it all together for you so that you can check. Are your name, address, phone number, are your good deets, are they all congruent? Do you have good keywords? Are you using good plugins? There's lots and lots of questions on there that will give you an idea of maybe where there are a few holes in your strategy for your digital property. And maybe it will tell you that you have a lot of good things going on.
That is awesome. So now we come to one of my favorite parts of the show here, which I like to refer to as social karaoke. So hashtag social karaoke. When you go do karaoke, you get to pick your own song. You get to get up there and share, with the audience, and nobody knows what you're going to share. So that's why it's social karaoke. And this is the open mic portion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand off the mic to you for a few seconds and really let you share with the audience something that you would like to share. Now, you've already done some really great strategy alerts, so I really love that. Thank you so much for being so generous. But as I hand off the mic to you, what would you like to share with my audience?
Okay, well, I'm going to say to your audience, they're very lucky that I am not, in fact, singing, because I can't carry a tune, even if I had a bucket.
Me either.
So, much better that it's social. Actually, what I really love to give your people is, I call it a tweak, but this is probably one of the best ways you can assure that more of what you do is getting seen by the search engines. And that sounds huge, but what I'm talking about is images, okay? And this will spill over into video, but what I want to say is this. Every image you have should have breadcrumbs, here I go again, that tie back to you. Now, what the hell do I mean by that? What I mean is this. So if, for instance, Patty, we put up a picture of you and I that we took together in Dallas in 2013, I believe it's when I was there. There is what I call a naming convention for your images, and you can extend this to your files. Using a naming convention means that you're always going to be able to find things, but more to the point, it means the search engines are always going to be able to tie what's yours to you. And what that is this. You put a word and a dash and another word and a dash and then another word. Now, I want to really explain that. I just wanted to give you the visual. There can't be spaces, okay? The algorithms don't understand empty space, so let's just make it easy on them. So that particular image would have both you and I in it, and it was at the eWomen event. So how I would name that is Patty-Farmer-Elaine Lindsay Dallas eWomen 2013. All of those names in that can tie back to you and I, can tie back to eWomen. If I put that image on my website, it's automatically going to tie to Truel Social because the name of your website is in the URL. When you put images on your website, make sure they've got your name or your brand. If your site is not the same name as your brand, get that in there. If you're a speaker, get that in there. If you're a social media manager, get that in there. If you're a plumber or an astronaut, whatever you do, make sure that some of those keywords are in the title of that image. And here's the second part. It's absolutely critical that every single image you put up has what we call an alt tag. And Patty, I think you can maybe put that on the page with the podcast. That alt tag was originally created to allow for people that were visually impaired and people that used mechanical readers in order to, quote unquote, see things on the internet. It became very useful for the search engines because back then they couldn't see images either. So they could understand what was in the picture. By saying Patty Farmer and Elaine Lindsay, Dallas 2013 eWomen, in the alt tag, I would add meeting first time eWomen conference. Because in that alt tag, that's not just telling them what's in the image, but it's telling why that image is there.
That's really good information. Thank you so much, Elaine. And thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciated how generous you're being with your zone of genius. But then you always are. It's just the giver that you are. So for everyone, if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. And remember, sharing is caring. This has been a phenomenal segment. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And to the next time we meet, Elaine, and to the next time we have an episode, have a great day. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine at www.marketingmediamoney.com. I promise your business will thank you.